Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny.
You know what time it is, so sit back and get ready for the Stafford Voice, your dose of conservative in a world of liberal.
3, 2, 1.
Hey, how you doing? I'm your host, Daniel Stafford, and you are listening to the Stafford Voice, where we are conservative in a world of liberal. And tonight, we are going to talk about the Hokey Pokey, the Republican National Convention, if we have time, also a little adventure that my wife and I took. Also, we're going to hit up our new segment that is our profiles in history, and yes, somebody out there is completely stuck on stupid, so I want to talk about it and make fun of them. But before we get into any of that stuff, I want to remind you there are many ways to listen, so set this channel as a favorite, whatever you have to do so you don't get left behind, because if for some strange, crazy reason you do miss the show, you'll be able to catch the replay via podcast, whichever way you subscribe. So just sit tight. There's no need to panic. Yes, I've got you. In the case you aren't already following on social media, you can do so over on the Twitters at Stafford Voice. Or you can look me up on Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat. That's right, Snapchat. More on that one later. Wherever. Just search for the Stafford Voice, and we'll be there. If you want to remain a little more anonymous and you don't want to get out on social media, but you just want to let us know what you think of the show, or you've got a question or a concern or anything, feel free to email me at thestaffordvoice@gmail.com. I personally answer every tweet, every comment on social media, and I also reply to every email, personal, myself. There's no big main production going on here, folks, okay? So this is what it is. So let's dive into the show. We've got the Hokey Pokey. You know, when you were a kid, you do the Hokey Pokey and you throw your balls around, and that's how you play Pokemon. Okay, maybe that's not really how you do it. But apparently that's what's going on these days. That's what they do. But if you're living under a rock, you don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But Pokemon Go. Let me just say this. An estimated 15 million plus downloads in the first week. Also, I ladies and gentlemen, I stink at this. I always forget to talk about joining the chat room. There's two different ways to listen or to participate. There's two different ways to participate in the chat room. You can either use k98talk.org/chat-room, or you can go over to thestaffordvoice.com/listen-live. The chat room is a mirror on both sites, and if you want to join in there, you can join some like-minded individuals. One of those is the one and the only Jason DeWilkins. The other one is Army John. Sergeant John will make you do push-ups if you don't go to the website and join the chat room. I love Army John. I absolutely love Jason DeWilkins. And let me just say this. Last week, I had the honor. He's probably not going to say it was an honor, but it was for me. I looked forward to it for a long time. We had actually planned on this for a couple of months to be able to meet up and talk about some things. But I was able to sit down with Jason DeWilkins from According to Me. that little podcast that you'd probably most likely get offended by. Regardless, fantastic time sitting down and talking to Jason. That guy is like a brother from another mother and father. I mean, we found ourselves at times finishing each other's sentences, almost word for word, talking over each other, and people around us were looking at us like we were weird. Absolutely great time. But not as good as what some people are talking about when it comes to this whole Pokemon Go. So let's get back to this whole Pokemon Go. Again, an estimated 15 million plus downloads in 1 week. If you're not surprised by that, the average daily usage is surpassing the top social media apps like Facebook and Twitter. Some out there are even claiming that it's helping those with depression and anxiety cope. I wouldn't know. I'm not going to rely on some silly little app like Pokemon Go to help my depression or to help calm me down with some level of anxiety. It's just not going to work. It's probably going to tick me off. Anyway, what are the downsides? First off, you could get hit by a car. There's reports of people getting hit by cars. You could get robbed. You could fall off a cliff. You could even get caught up in a mob in the middle of Central Park looking for a rare Pokemon in the middle of the night. That's right. Somewhere around midnight, somewhere in the middle of the night, in Central Park, New York, word got out that there was a rare Pokemon to be discovered, and it was like a flash mob. Probably one of the silliest and dumbest things I've ever seen come across the screen. If that's not dumb enough, the sheep will even find their way to follow along on the campaign trail. What am I saying? The Clinton campaign announced that they're going to hold an official event where they are going to register voters at the quote-unquote Madison Park Pokestop and Pokegym in Lakewood, Ohio. And according to the Clinton website, you can join us as we go to the Pokestop in Madison Park and put up a lure module, get free Pokemon, and battle each other while you, wait for it, register votes and learn more about Secretary Hillary Clinton. I don't know about you, but that sounds like one hell of a waste of time. The last thing I want to do is go register to vote for Hillary Clinton in the middle of a park with a bunch of 30 and 40-year-old virgins who want to play a stupid flippin' game on their phone and run into each other and see the sun for the first time in probably 20 years. I'm not joking. My wife was getting ready to leave the house the other day. She leaves the house somewhere around 6:30, 6:45 in the morning. Central Time. It's not really bright out, okay? The sun is coming up, but relatively, it's still slightly dark out. You would not expect teenagers to be walking around. At the end of our driveway, two pale ghosts. The way she made it sound was as if Twilight was being refilmed at the end of our driveway. She said these guys, I mean, if light was to hit these people, they probably would have glittered because it was the first time they've seen sun in 10, 15, 20 years. Okay? But so with all of this negative stuff, there's got to be something good to come out of all of this, right? With all of the bad, there's got to be something positive. Now, believe it or not, and kudos to these guys. Kudos to these people for actually doing this. People are going out to their local children's hospitals, and they're dropping lures at these hospitals because these kids can't go out and play too. They're taking it to a whole different level by even coordinating how they're going to be able to help these kids get the most out of this silly little game. If you're remotely interested in how to help, and you want to bring positive, you want to be the light to someone's dark day, head over and check out on Reddit what they're talking about. Go look at some of what these Redditors are trying to put together, because it's absolutely fascinating. They're coordinating beyond what I would have ever imagined. And I was actually sent that tip by somebody on Twitter at Protopotamus. That dude cracks me up. I follow him on YouTube's, and him and his wife play video games together, and it's a blast. I know it sounds kind of geeky, but in a world that has my head spinning so many times because of politics and this circus sideshow called the Republican National Convention that's going on over in Cleveland, I gotta find something that makes me laugh. And the two of them have absolutely great chemistry. It's so much fun to watch. Some of the dumbest games I've ever seen, and it's funny. Anyway, go check out at Protopotamus on Twitter or the YouTubes, and let him know that I sent you, because him and I have talked a couple of times. The guy's absolutely funny. He keeps me in stitches most of the time. So you either love it or hate it. Pokemon Go, you either love it or hate it. And I dug a little bit of digging, and I asked over the weekend some of the funny things, some of the dumbest, and what you think is good or bad or whatever. So what are people saying? For instance, one person said the funniest thing I've heard about the game is that someone caught some Pokemon when he was cheating on his wife with his ex. And the wife later saw where he caught the Pokemon and knew it was the area where his ex lived and got caught cheating. You can run, but you can't hide. Anyway, so one of the dumbest things that somebody is out there seeing, and this guy is spot on in his comments, he says, I asked what was one of the dumbest things that we're seeing, and he says dumbest, as he asked this as a question. He says dumbest as in we have anarchy, 2 candidates for president who are both embarrassing, a national health care plan that it's a joke, women being forcibly circumcised, and we're following our phones to track made-up little monsters. Bingo, that guy gets it. Here's one that I saw on another thread. They said, I think it's a win for capitalism and the free market. Our government, as well as others, has spent billions trying to stem the tide of childhood obesity, and in 1 week's time, this free market app has made children go outside to play. That's the political response. Personal opinion, quote-unquote adults of my generation that are very much kids at heart have been waiting for this game for decades. If you're in the chat room, if you're not, some of you are not in the chat room and seeing what they're talking about. And Army John just said adults playing Pokemon Go on their phones they're playing on their phones and driving. Ladies and gentlemen, please put the phone down before you kill someone. Catching the next little Pokemon is not worth risking your life or somebody else's. That's absolutely ridiculous. Maybe I got to get out Big Red, my truck, and start pushing people a little bit to make sure they're not on their phones. Anyway, and yes, Army John, I totally agree. He says if the Pokemon developers are smart, they'll put a block while driving, or they will make some injury lawyers very rich. Totally agree. Okay, so where do we pick up? Okay, here's another one that I found. For some reason, seeing crowds of folks gathering in parks and such following their phones reminds me of some sci-fi movie or show. Unsuspecting sheep all drawn into one place, and then in come the aliens or something. My response to that, kind of like what we're seeing at the Republican National Convention, or, as they're saying in the chat room, the Republican National Circus. Yes. And yes, Jason, it's not the app and it's not the developer's fault that people are stupid. It's just people are stupid. It's just people are actually born that way. Responsibility is one of those things that most people threw out the window. However, one of the best comments I saw came from a powerlifter that I've followed this guy for quite a few years. His name's Brandon Lilly. The guy looks like he looks like a big gorilla. Big monster. I mean, the guy is huge. He's tatted up. Anyway, this dude is not only physically strong, but mentally, he is not one to be messed with. I mean, just about a year and a half ago, he had an accident at a powerlifting meet, and he really messed up his knees, and he had to go in for some surgery, really extensive surgery. And watching him come back was incredible. Anyway, go look up Brandon Lilly on Facebook, and you will be surprised at the level of strength that not only physically but mentally this guy has. But he summed all of this up by saying, quote, "The irony of people sitting behind a screen taking jabs at people behind a screen playing Pokemon. We all live in a synthetic reality where we only post the good. We're all chasing something. We're trained to take a selfie rather than putting the camera down to enjoy a moment because no pic, no proof, right? We are all living inside a video game, and the players have an absolute power so pure that we, for the most part, get bent, manipulated, and in the end, thank them for services rendered because we stay attached to the material. We're becoming a thoughtless, heartless, emotionless society because we are taught to love things, and things do not love you back. We're taught to work, and work more, to buy, all the while we let strangers in daycares raise our kids, and we sit and wonder what's gone wrong. Really? What if we chased time with friends, family, chased experiences where the stories are the only reminder of the good times had? What if for one meal you didn't check your phone but made eye contact with your lover? Is it too much? Too close? Something is lost. Connection, touch. Remember getting a letter? The smell, feel of the paper and dried ink. Remember what it felt like to send flowers instead of an e-card. We are flesh in a digital world, and the only thing that will save us is connection, contact, and love. It's okay to feel something real. Man, that's so powerful. That guy hit exactly where my mind was. We live in a society where so many people are fake. And I'm coming at you real right now. I mean, I get so sick and tired of people getting on Instagram, mostly women, and they take a picture of themselves in something risque, and all they're doing is just degrading themselves. It's absolutely sick. If you really have to degrade yourself in order to get that kind of attention, you really need to figure out what is lost in your life. Put down the phone, put down the camera, and go and talk to somebody. Go make a real connection where you're sitting down and talking to someone face to face. Get out pen and paper and physically write a letter. It's not always about trying to communicate. There's differences between communicating and communication. Sure, I can send an email, I can send a tweet, but it's something more. There's a different level of contact or connection, different level of personal contact when you see somebody's handwriting. You know it came from a person. You know they put effort into it. They didn't just grab their phone and talk into it while whatever email service they're using dictated everything they said, and then they went back and perfected everything. That's not how this is supposed to work. And this ties in perfectly to this thing that my wife and I did over the weekend. And it goes back to, I was teasing you guys about Snapchat. If you don't follow me on Snapchat, really, that's the only way you're going to get some of these little adventures that my wife and I do. I know that at one point, our biggest adventure, and this was kind of through some of the depression that I was going through, but just trying to make light of situations where we would be on our way to go to the grocery store. We'd be on our way to go to the grocery store, and I would talk about what we were going to have for that week, and you'd follow me through the grocery store. Silly stuff. You know, you guys have probably heard the cat in the background. The cat's just laying here in the studio right now with us, and at least she's being quiet. But you got to buy your animals food. You can't feed them off the table. And as a joke, I'm standing in the middle of the grocery store in the cat food section while people are walking by, and I'm Snapchatting how my wife is putting me on a diet, and I had no idea that this is what she was talking about. You got to lighten up, people. We've got to have fun. Okay? So, here's what we did. Over the weekend, we started Saturday. I thought it sounded like a fantabulous time. Okay? We hopped on our bikes. I wanted to hop on my bike and go for a ride. Well, the week previous, I went alone. I get back and my wife was like, I thought about going. So I said, next time around, I'll make sure that I ask you. Well, so I asked her. I don't know if it was a mistake on my half or one on hers for actually saying yes, but we went on a 3 to 4 mile bike ride together, spending time, again, I gotta say that, together, and talking and communicating and being out in nature, letting the fresh air hit your face. There's just something awesome about that. And we had a great time. It even gave us some energy that after I made some cherry berry smoothies with pomegranate juice. And if you guys have, please, if you're listening and you have a really good smoothie recipe, send it my way. I'm looking for some new ones. I'm getting really bored with this tropical one that I'm making, and I'm getting bored again with the cherry berry blend that I'm doing. But we went for a bike ride, came home, I made us some smoothies, and then I don't know what the heck got over me. I decided that I was going to go out and mow the yard. That triggered something in my wife to get the hedge clippers and the trimmers to start trimming everything. Next thing you know, our yard is looking great. We made our yard look great again. And we came inside, got ready, and we looked at each other and said, man, it's about time for some lunch. So that's when I decided we're going to go on an adventure. So we hopped in the car. We went to a local burger joint, Freddy's. It's like one of those older 50s, 60s style burger joints, like where they smash the patties. They're paper thin. Anyway, great. Add bacon, and you've made a masterpiece. So after that, we went across town and we went to a museum. This really wasn't anything like most museums. They really only had one exhibit. They didn't have anything else. They had one main exhibit, and every 6 months or so, they shut down that exhibit. They come in and they put up a whole new exhibit. Well, what really enticed me was their exhibit was about the brain. Nothing more, nothing less. It was all about the brain, what makes it up, what kind of other things can cause the brain to go wacky, and the pieces of the brain that do that. At one point, I finally realized it hit me. Democrats are missing key parts of their brain. Proven fact. I would invite you to hurry up to Kansas City. I will personally take you through. I'll even pay for your ticket to go through. It was great. I'll even go through it again. I'm sure that I missed some stuff. Next time, instead of Snapchatting the whole thing, I will probably take pen and paper. Yes, Army John, in the chat room again, they're missing the full frontal cortex. Yes. They're also missing they're missing another key part, but I can't remember. They basically broke down the brain into like 4 or 5 different pieces, and they focused on those. They were the main pieces to the brain. They didn't really break it down. And to be quite honest, I was actually really, really frustrated. On our way home, I almost slammed on the brakes, turned around, and went back to make sure that I didn't miss it. My wife looked at me like, what is wrong with you? I said, seriously, we spent 3 hours learning about the brain, and not once did somebody talk about the medulla oblongata. I was so ticked off. Really, really ticked off. But it reminded me that how intricate and perfect our bodies really are, despite how Democrats are missing the majority of the main pieces of the brain, and even Republicans are missing key parts of the brain. It was a great time. In the chat room right now, they're talking about juicers. I'm really interested. I'll tell you what, Army John and Jason, throw me some of your research, because we've talked about getting a juicer. Right now, we just do everything with a blender. But we've really considered getting a juicer, and that's one of the ones we've talked about getting is the Breville. I've seen nothing but good things about it. But sorry, Army John, I think I'm too young to be able to go back in time to purchase a Jack LaLanne juicer. You may be showing some of your age there, brother. Anyway, you know what? I realized we've talked this whole time without taking a break. So, when we come back from a break, I want to talk just a few minutes about... he says I can still buy Jack's juicer. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to talk about some of this circus sideshow freak show that we're seeing in Cleveland at the Republican National Circus. And then we will jump into our profile in history this week, and I had an incredible time researching this guy. Super, super awesome. So when we come back, that's what you're in store for. You're listening to the Stafford Voice. I am your host, Daniel Stafford, and we are conservative in a world of liberal. Nothing will protect you quite like your sidearm, so why not give it the protection it deserves? Something as strong as the Second Amendment and stands the test of time, and better yet, made in the USA. A Rebel Road Tactical Custom Kydex holster is that and more. Call now and place your order with Rebel Road Tactical at 682-217-4579. Again, 682-217-4579, or online at rebelroadtactical.com.
It's happening and nothing can stop it. It's the dramatic reinvention of Talk Radio.
Here come the spy dolphins.
The only thing that can cure racism is Robert E. Lee's penis.
Who named this cat Limberbutt McCubbin? A Trump-Biden debate.
Plugs versus rugs. Real serious nonsense. The show's so bad, you'll laugh at us.
The worst podcast. We obviously hold that title.
Mondays, 9 p.m. Eastern on K98 Talk.
Some crowdfunding sites are too liberal and keep more for themselves. Even worse, if they don't like you or someone gets offended, they'll cancel your campaign. But not at RWNJ Funding. They hold true to conservative and libertarian values. Plus, they won't cave to the PC crowd. More importantly, they believe in you. RWNJFunding.com. The right cause, the right values, done right. RWNJFunding.com.
Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Conservative in a world of liberal.
The Stafford Voice.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and if you haven't joined us in the chat room, they're really bringing it to me. I'm an ageist now. I discriminate against old people. I really don't. They're saying, Jason said, OPLM, old people lives matter. Oh, whatever. You guys are killing me. Anyway, yes, old people lives matter. I get it. Something else I get. Some people just don't get it. Some people are so blinded by the glitz and the glamour. If you haven't picked up on what I'm talking about here, or what I'm throwing down, I'm talking about this circus, sideshow, freak show called the Republican National Circus. That's what we're going to call it. We're just going to call it a circus. I like that, John. The Republican National Circus, because that's really what this whole thing is. I'm so glad that I'm really not going to pay too much attention to this stupid thing all week. If I wanted to go to the circus, I'd go to the big top and I'd watch elephants stand on little boxes. Okay? But this thing is beyond stupid. Trump has taken over the whole darn thing, and it's sickening. It's sickening to what he has done to put an idea into people's heads that he is the one and only who can fix everything and make America everything again. So, being that Trump is the guy, they followed his idea that he's sold to so many other blind and deaf Americans that we need to make America great again. At some point, I'd really like that jerkwad to tell me when America wasn't great. What was it that made America not great? If you can honestly answer that, without calling me a never-Trumper or a Hillary supporter, because I don't support either one of them, make your argument. But they went along with this daily theme idea, where one day we're going to, on one day we've assembled all of these speakers, and And we're going to talk about making America safe again. Another day, we've assembled people that want to talk about work. We're going to make America work again. Another day, make America first again. Hey, jerkwad, we've always been first and we always will be first. There's not a single other entity out there that can dethrone us. We are the best, always have been, and always will be. It's nimwads like you that demote this country and make people question it. Trump is not the golden ox that everybody thinks he is. He's a sideshow freak. And the last day where in the incredible all-encompassing Trump is going to talk, make America one again. Let me just say this. And that's all I've got to say about that. All right. What do you say? I tell you what. Let's do this. Let's do a quick break. And when we come back, it is full, in-your-face profiles in history. Right here on the Stafford Voice, where we are conservative in a world of liberal. We'll be right back.
K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we are expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level, or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at sales@k98fm.com.
This is JD.
And this is Stacy.
Join us Tuesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern for Game On. Remember,
Lock up the children and the old folks.
Game On, the home of liberservative conservatism.
Where no one is safe, and no one is spared, not even the hosts.
Oh, that was supposed to be a spin cycle. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. We love you anyway. Right round, baby.
Self-monitoring
right round.
Ebola
Anyway.
radio strikes again.
Anyway.
Anybody see the host monkey? Where's the host monkey? Where's the host monkey? For God's sake, I need an antidote. Just do your rant. Let's pop out of the segment.
Has to do with
Find us on Twitter at JD and Stacy.
You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Whether you're an employee or business owner, when it comes to the correct course of legal action, it's the first step that is important. And make that first step with attorney Ted Hong. You need someone you can trust and has the experience you need when it comes to workplace and employment law. If you've lost your employment due to discrimination, false accusations, or being denied benefits, you need Ted Hong. Or if you're an employer who wants to ensure compliance with workplace regulations and labor contracts, you need Ted Hong. Ted and his team also cover family and property law and estate litigation as well. Ted has over 30 years of experience, and him and his amazing legal team will provide you cost-effective legal consultation and make the experience all about you and your needs. For more information or to set up a consultation, contact the law office of Ted Hong at 808-933-1919 or visit tedhonglaw.com. Ted Hong, an experienced and principled attorney you can trust. 808-933-1919 or tedhonglaw.com.
Conservative in a world of liberal.
The Stafford Voice.
Okay, we are back. And right now we are going to have our profiles in history. John Adams was born on October 30th, 1735 in Braintree, Massachusetts, which is now called Quincy. At the age of 16, he was sent to attend Harvard. After graduating, he was hired as a schoolmaster in Worcester, Massachusetts. At one point, he considered becoming a minister, but decided to begin studying law after moving into the home of James Putnam, who was an attorney in town. Adams was a short, stout man who aired his emotions for all to see, and on October 15, 1764, he married Abigail Smith, who would aid in the task of keeping those emotions under some level of control and self-assurance. Events throughout the next year would push Adams closer to the political arena, eventually writing against the Stamp Act, which was published in the Boston Gazette. And in 1766, he moved his practice to Boston, where he began to gain notoriety for defending John Hancock against the British, who charged him with smuggling. The Boston Massacre took place on March 5th, 1770, and it was Adams and Josiah Quincy who defended the soldiers. Now, even though Adams was defending the unpopular British soldiers, it didn't hurt his reputation. In fact, it may have been just the ticket he needed to advance in politics. He was elected to Massachusetts legislature and later would work on the Committee of Correspondence his older cousin, Samuel Adams, set in place. As the residents of Boston expressed their opposition to another tax by the British Parliament, the tax on tea, it pushed the colonists to call for the colonies to send representatives to a Continental Congress in 1774. Adams was among those who would meet in Philadelphia. Less than a month later, the battles of Lexington and Concord, on May 10, 1775, Congress would gather together in Philadelphia. On June 14th, they formed the Continental Army, where Adams would nominate George Washington as head of the army. It was seconded by Samuel Adams, and the next day, Washington's appointment was unanimously approved. Some in Congress hoped the conflict could be resolved peacefully. However, Adams felt differently. He wrote to Abigail saying, quote, "I saw from the beginning that the controversy was of such a nature that it never would be settled, and every day convinces me more and more." Adams was a busy man. Through 1777, he would serve as a member of 90 different committees and would chair 25 of them. All of that work would eventually begin to pay off when, on June 7th, 1776, Richard Henry Lee of Virginia would propose a resolution, quote, that these united colonies are, and of right, ought to be free and independent states. Adams would second the proposal and become part of the committee that was created to draft a Declaration of Independence. Now, even though it was Thomas Jefferson that provided the words for the Declaration, Adams's role was just as important, to get it passed. Working tirelessly and giving multiple arguments in Congress, he would push for the dream of independence, both in public and private. In 1824, Jefferson said, quote, "John Adams was our colossus on the floor. He was not graceful, nor elegant, nor remarkably fluent. But he came out occasionally with a power of thought and expression that moved us from our seats." On July 2nd, 1776, Congress voted in favor of independence, and during the next day, Adams' excitement was so high, he would write 2 letters to his wife Abigail. In his first letter to her, he wrote, quote, "Yesterday the greatest question was decided, whichever was debated in America, and a greater, perhaps, never was or will be decided among men. A resolution was passed without one dissenting colony that these united colonies are, and of right, ought to be free and independent states." He continued, "It is the will of heaven that the two countries should be sundered forever. It may be the will of heaven that America shall suffer calamities still more wasting and distresses yet more dreadful. If this is to be the case, it will have this good effect, and least, it will inspire us with many virtues, which we have not, and correct many errors, follies, and vices, which threaten to disturb, dishonor, and destroy us. But I must submit all my hopes and fears to an overruling providence, in which, unfashionable as the faith may be, I firmly believe." In part of his second letter, he said, quote, "The second day of July 1776 will be the most memorable epoch in the history of America. It ought to be commemorated as the day of deliverance by solemn acts of devotion to God Almighty. It ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade, with shoes, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations from one end of this continent to the other, from this time forward forevermore." Now fast forward to the year 1789, and as fate would have it, George Washington won unanimous support of the state's electors to become the first president under the Constitution. Among the split roster of vice presidential candidates, Adams won with only 34 of the 69 electoral votes. As the country's first vice president, he was sworn in on April 21st, 1789. His opinion of the position was not high at all. He said, quote, "My country has in its wisdom contrived for me the most insignificant office that ever the invention of man contrived or his imagination conceived." However, it was his role as tiebreaker in the Senate, casting more deciding votes than any vice president since, that proved otherwise. Now, Washington was elected unanimously for his second and last term as president, with Adams beating out Governor George Clinton of New York for vice president with 77 to 50 electoral votes. 4 years later, Washington announced he would not seek that third term. This created an ugly battle between John Adams and his friend at the time, Thomas Jefferson. These two went at it, and after all the dust settled, Adams received 71 electoral votes to Jefferson's 68. At the time, the Constitution stated that the person with the most electoral votes would be president, and the person with the second most would become vice president. The next time around would favor Thomas Jefferson over Adams by 8 electoral votes. Now, Adams was extremely upset at how he was criticized and treated, and refused to even attend the inauguration on March 4th, 1801. He instead went back home to Braintree, Massachusetts, where he would spend most of the rest of his life. His closest friend and soulmate, Abigail, died of typhoid fever on October 18th, 1818, just 3 days after their 54th wedding anniversary. He would live to see the political rise of their son, John Quincy Adams, who became president in 1825. On July 4th, 1826, the 50th anniversary of the passing of the Declaration of Independence, at around 6 p.m., Adams passed away, and among the last words he whispered were, quote, "Thomas Jefferson still survives." Now, history tells us his friend turned enemy turned friend again passed away a few hours earlier, around 1 in the afternoon. And that is John Adams for our profiles in history. Amazing individual, and I, again, had an incredible time putting that together and researching more about John Adams. I even had a blast researching his cousin, Samuel Adams. I didn't really know that much about Sam Adams. But, again, each week coming up, we're going to highlight an individual that signed the Declaration of Independence, and we're going to learn more about the people that helped form this country and how and the greatness that it really is. Now, unfortunately, not to be outshadowed, somebody out there, again, has to prove that they are completely stuck on stupid. That's right. It's time for Who Said That? Again, if you're not used to this show, Who Said That is a short little segment that we wrap up this show with, where we highlight something from whether it's a conservative, a libertarian, a Democrat, a liberal, a Republican. It does not matter. It doesn't matter. If you say something that proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that you are completely stuck on stupid, we want to congratulate you. And we'll probably make fun of you because of it. And this week really had me scratching my head. Check this out.
Press conference. I will say that I happened to be on the road near that area this morning and did see the police cars all of a sudden rush towards that area. I saw where by Our Lady of the Lake Hospital, where all of a sudden it seemingly you had a beefed-up police presence, the long guns that were out, where the police officers were taken after the shooting. Shepard, I will say this. Look, it is time for folks across party lines, across ideological lines, to condemn this violence, to condemn this insanity. We've got to come together. We've got to say that all lives matter. It doesn't matter what color you are, black, white, brown, red. It doesn't matter. All lives matter. We've got to protect and value our police.
Governor, you know that phrase you just used is one that's seen by many as derogatory, right? And I just wonder why it is that you use that phrase when there's a certain segment of the population that believes it's a real dig on them.
Well, Shepard, it's not meant to be. The point is this: we've got to move beyond race. Look, these police officers, these are the men and women that run towards danger, not away from it, so that we can be safe. It is time for us to be unified as a country. We've got to look beyond race. I think that's one of the dumbest ways for us to divide people. It's one of the dumbest ways for us to classify people or categorize people. We shouldn't be divided. We do need to be united. These are police officers. They don't care whether you're black or white. They will run towards danger to protect you. That's what they swear. That's their duty. That's what they do for us. These are heroes.
This sounds like two different things to me, Governor. I mean,
oh my word! If you didn't recognize the sound of that voice, not Bobby Jindal. I'm not talking about Bobby Jindal. The other guy that you heard was Shepard Smith from Fox News, or Faux News, however you want to word it. Excuse me, genius. You are completely stuck on stupid. I don't care if it hurts somebody's feelings to say that all lives matter. If you think that only black lives matter, well, guess what? You're part of that all lives that matter. My word, I'm not even going to get into it. I don't even want to touch that much on politics this week because it's absolutely sickening. I'm tired of seeing our men and women in law enforcement being treated the way they are. I'm not even going to do it. You know what? I'm just going to end it there. That is all the time we have for this week. And God willing, the Stafford Voice will be back next week. You can follow me on Twitter at Stafford Voice. Or you can look me up over on the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the Snapchats, whatever. All you got to do, just look for the Stafford Voice. Email your questions, comments, concerns, whatever it is, to thestaffordvoice@gmail.com. Thank you so much for your time, and until next week, thanks, and God bless.